All right, Panther fans, how's everybody doing this morning? Yeah, a little bit different this morning. This is the Florida Panthers review with Jaws and Stu without Stu. Stu and I had a massive fight this morning. He was upset that I was blaming Bobrovsky. He says Bobrovsky's still elite, that Ekblad is still fast, and I don't think he's going to be on the channel anymore. So, Stu is sick. Stu is sick. He really wanted to be here. Um, but he's sick. So I've got some of his thoughts, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to read some of your comments. Um, that was from the recap last night. So for Stu, his thoughts are very, very simple. He says Bob, Stahl, and Ekblad suck, and then he wants to clarify and say both stalls. He says, get rid of them, bring up Kierstetter Carlson, and get rid of Eric Stahl and bring up Heppo Niemi. So let's just talk a little bit about that. Um, Boy, I can't necessarily say that I disagree. Especially, look, we already know how I feel about Heppo Niemi. He should have made the team. Why we've got Eric Stahl out there instead of letting Hornquist center the fourth line and put Heponiemi on the wing and let the kid start to develop a little bit um, is absurd. It's beyond me. It's not like Stahl is he's not horrible, but he's not helping this team. He's just out there. Um, in terms of Ekblad, I will reiterate what I said last night. I've been watching him since he came back. He's either still hurt or the injuries have just slowed him down to a point where he's become a liability on the ice. And Bobrovsky, geez, I went to Twitter last night after the game, and I've never seen Panthers Twitter so united in Bob and Ekblad and the Stalls. I've never seen Panthers Twitter when things go bad. Remember, I started this channel 2016. It was bad, and it was a massive divide in the fan base between Gabranson sucked. He's good to get rid of him and to move to analytics. And the old school people like myself and Jeff and Stu who were like, "Hey, well, we were doing just fine." There was a big divide in the fan base. And as we've gotten better, especially last year, there wasn't really much to complain about, right? Until we got to the playoffs. But I've never seen the team do poorly like this. And everybody pretty much is in agreement for the overwhelming majority of people that they're seeing Bobrovsky, they're seeing Ekblad, and the stalls are it's just, why? Why are we doing this? Because to Stu's point, I'll bring up Kierstetter Carlson, especially Kierstetter looked fast out there. He really increased his speed. The kid he's ready to be a top six defenseman, and I kind of feel the same way about Lucas Carlson. So it's just a complete waste having Stahl out there, who's not terrible, but if you get him and Ekblad on the ice at the same time, it's bad because they're both slow. And I don't want to call Ekblad old and slow. He was never the quickest skater in the world. And he had started to work on his skating a little bit. He had gotten a little bit better. And then he's had these two leg injuries in a row. And now he's got the groin thing. And you can't tell me he's either seriously diminished in his capabilities or he's still hurt because he can't turn. You watched it last night a couple of times. And not just with the empty net, a couple of times before that. He is struggling to keep up with guys. And it's almost as though he's afraid to he looks like he's skating in quicksand. It almost looks as though he's afraid to really open it up and turn it on. And you can almost see the frustration coming off of him. So he's either still hurt or he's frustrated with the fact that he can't skate as well as he used to, even though he was never a great skater to begin with. Now, Bob, before I start to get to some of the comments on the recap from last night, Bubba, uh, look, if you've watched this channel, you know when we got Bob, I said, okay, we got him. We got him now. And then we drafted Knight and was kind of like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Right? But we did it. And so we kind of all expected, and then his first year was not good, and we kind of gave him a pass, and it's like, well, it's a new team, new system. The defense wasn't great at that point still. Then his second season, he wasn't really, it wasn't any much, really a whole lot better. It was a little bit better, but certainly not $10 million better. Then we had last year, and he looked as close last year. He looked as close as he has to what he was in Columbus last season, and including the playoffs, he played outstanding. And he was not a problem in the playoffs at all. He kept us in. And then you get to this year. And the first preseason game, he looked just like he did last year. He was quick. He was on the angles. And if you go back and you watch, I did a video after that first game, after the first preseason game. I said, Bob is ready. Bob is completely ready. He looks great. He looks fantastic out there. I don't want to see him back on the ice so he doesn't get hurt, etc. He's good. And then he played a couple more times in the preseason and he didn't look good. He didn't look good. And he's been extraordinarily inconsistent this year. And it's not just one thing. He's not coming out to challenge the shooters. His angles, he's just off. He's getting beat short side. He's getting beat wide. He's getting beat 5-0. Now I know some of the goals, excuse me. I know some of the goals have been deflections in front, and that's tough. I'm not sitting here saying every single goal is on him, but those are goals that are going to happen, deflections in front, and there's a different reason for that, and we'll get into that. But at the same point, you need your goalie to be on. You can't allow a goal like he did the other night where the defender is coming around the net and he gets him short side because Bob goes down and he leaves half the net open, and you can't have that. And Bobrovsky's never been the traditional, stay in his spot, big goaltender and hard to beat that way. He's always been a guy that moves around a lot, makes the super acrobatic saves, and occasionally lets in one that, maybe he shouldn't have let in. But we're not really getting very much of the acrobatic saves right now because teams don't need to, because they're getting enough shots from bad angles and catching him just not ready. I don't even know what it is. They're not having to work that hard for the goals, as you saw last night. At one point, I think it was 4 goals on 18 shots or something. I mean, it was some crazy. It's just bad. It's just bad. Now, I know last night I talked about the age thing, so I want to reiterate that a little bit. And what I'm talking about is I've seen it. I've grown up watching all sports. Okay, I don't watch all four now, but when I was younger, I did. Aging players, they have there's a tendency they have to start falling off a little bit. You see this a lot with running backs, especially. They start to fall off a little bit, 29, 30 years old. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they have this one more fantastic season in them where you're like, oh, wow, this guy he's still got it. And then after they pour all the gas out of their tank in that one fantastic season, the drop off is rapid and significant. And I'm not ready to write it in stone that that's what we're seeing, but I think that might be what we're seeing. We're 20 games in now. There's a decent sample size, and it's not getting any better. It's not like he's gradually getting a little bit better, a little bit better. It's 4 or 5 a night now. And yes, there's problems on defense. There's problems with the forwards not coming back. There's allowing men alone in the net, alone in front of the net and whatnot. But like Spencer Knight made a save against Calgary, where there was a guy left alone in front of the net and it was deflected, and Knight was able to make the save. Those are Bob's letting those in, and I'm not saying Knight's saying saving every one, but he's saving more than Bob. And at this point, we're 9-8 into, right? So we're below 500. And unless we beat the Bruins, unless we beat the Bruins on Wednesday, we're gonna be well below 500 after 20 games. So you have to start thinking, okay, this is not even just about are we going to be good in year two, year three, year four from now. We're gonna find ourselves out of a playoff spot if we continue to allow this to happen. There's going to have to be some changes made. So before I get to the comments, I'll just reiterate what I said last night because I know a lot of times in the recaps I get emotional. I mean it. Give Spencer Knight this job and see what he can do. And I'm not saying because Spencer Knight is playing spectacular, but he's playing a lot better than Bobrovsky by a good measure. And maybe sitting Bob will reignite whatever it was that he had last year, but maybe there's something else going on. And at some point, just like with the stalls, at some point you have to start wondering why are we throwing him out there versus allowing this young guy and Spencer Knight to start to really develop and get 4 and 5 and 6 games straight and see if he can get if he can catch on fire. Um, and I know he didn't play fantastic against the Flames. I called him out for that third period goal, but I think things being what they are now, where we're out of a playoff spot and it's starting to, that gap is starting to get a little bit big, you're going to have to start considering making some serious, more serious moves. Okay. So I want to get to the comments. A couple of comments from the recap from last night because again, um, I'm used to so much disagreement when I go on my rants. It's rare where I have a video where I rant about a bunch of stuff and there's agreement. Um, but I'm seeing it everywhere. Everybody's kind of seeing the same thing. So the first comment is from Nerful, and really he kind of lays it out perfectly. He says, there isn't one big problem with this team. It goes a lot deeper than that. Multiple little problems and games combined, which leads to losses, including in games we dominate or deserve to win. Those small mental errors and mistakes add up and are costing the team. You can literally point the finger at anyone, any position, or coaching for different parts of the games. The problem is that the team as a whole isn't consistent and can't play a full 60. I couldn't have said it better. And that is a big reason why, not just because of my prediction, but that in a nutshell is a big reason why I haven't had a rant or been overly concerned because there's not any one or two or even three things. I mean, you could point to Bob Ekblad and Stahl, but that ain't it either. I mean, that's not all of it. You know what I mean? They might be biggest things going on right now, but there's a lot of little things. Um, we saw early in the year the forwards weren't coming back and guys were getting open in front of the net. I want to touch on because I think it was SoFlo Sports. Let me make sure I've got that right. Let me see. Um, Somebody had said, yeah, SoFlo says I disagree about Kachuk. He's been phenomenal this year. So what I said last night was that I recognize Kachuk is scoring and playing well. I'm not saying he's not playing well. What I'm saying is those first 3, 4, 5 games, and maybe we've just gotten used to it. I don't know. But it seemed like those first 4 or 5 games, he was like his ass was on fire to prove to the world that he belonged. I mean, he was all over the place. He was playing like a maniac, like a Tasmanian devil. Now, I get the part where you can't carry that kind of energy for 60 games, and I'm not necessarily being critical of Kachuk. I guess the point is that without him playing like a Tasmanian devil, the rest of the team is following in his lead, and you really only got a couple of guys out there that are giving a tremendous amount of energy. Um, and it really is something I touched on this last night. It's almost like there's a divide in the team because you've got the softer kind of players, and then you've got the guys that are a little bit more gritty and it's not meshing, and a lot of that's going to be on Maurice to find the right combinations of guys. Um, He's putzed around with he had Kachuk up top with Barkov, and then he moved Colin White, and Colin White got a goal, and then last night he puts Reinhardt back up there, and it's just so I think that Q and Brunette could do the line blender a little bit more because we had a core of guys that had played with each other a lot more and guys who were a lot more comfortable together. We've already seen a million times that Sam Reinhart is not going to go with Barkov on the top line. It's just not going to happen. So some portion of this is Maurice not figuring out what line combinations and sticking with it for more than 5 minutes because we are getting a lot of shots. The shots are, even a lot of our quality shots are just going right into the belly of the freaking goaltender. And I have to wonder if Maurice is stressing hit the net instead of trying to pick your spot because he's trying to get a rebound type of game going. But the problem is that nobody's in front of the net. Okay, every once in a while you see Kachuk or Hornquist, maybe a Reinhardt in front of the net. But for the most part, they keep chasing the puck behind the net. And somebody made a comment about this, actually. I want to see if I can find it. Yeah, Chili Willy says one problem I see is we always cycle it down below the net, and then once they're there, no one is open, no one in front of the net, and and if there is, he has two guys on him. Offensively, things have to change. The same cycle play every time. So much more wrong with the team, but that annoyed me the most. And that's a good point. Again, look, let's look at this from a different angle. Last year's team, this year's team. What are we missing? Duclair, Marchment, and Huberto. Those are the big three pieces that we're missing. What we have in place of that, let's wipe out Huberto with Kachuk, okay? And so we're missing Marchment and Duclair. Now I know Lusterine and Marchment are different players, but production wise, we could kind of swap that out a little bit. So then we're left missing Duclair. And what's happening is while Kachuk is making up for Huberto being gone, I wouldn't necessarily say Lusterinen is really filling Marchman's spot as well as we would like to. I think he will develop that way. I think production wise, he could end up with the same amount of goals and whatnot, but it's not the same style of player where we're going into the boards and winning battles like that. And then we're missing Duclair because he was such a clutch guy. How many times if we really needed a goal or we really needed to get things moving, or like Stu was saying to me last night about his speed, it forced us to play with speed with him out there. And it forced, whoever line, like if he was out there with Benefit, with Barkov, he forced everybody to play with tremendous speed. Now, Colin White's a nice player, but he ain't Anthony Duclair. Okay? So that is one piece that we're missing. Now, they've changed, obviously, the desired outcome, right? Because it used to be fast break, and so if we got a rebound, if Bob cleared out a rebound, Knight cleared out a rebound, we were all going, man. Everybody was going. Uyghur, Ekblad, all five skaters were just rushing down the ice. And, every once in a while something would happen and the puck was going back the other way and Bob was making saves on breakaways too last year. Don't forget that we had our fair share of guys getting caught in the zone, but Bob was making a lot of saves last year on those breakaways that he's not making now. And that kind of leads into what I was talking about with fault. People want to say, well, it's not Bob's fault it was the 2-on-1. It's not Bob's fault it was a breakaway. That's true. But last year he was making those saves and we won the President's Trophy. Now, this year is supposed to be a little bit different. Maybe he's not expecting the 2-on-1s and the breakaways because we're supposed to be playing a different style that doesn't allow for that. Now, that's the biggest problem here is that we're not playing this running gun offensive style that you have an accepted number of breakaways and 2-on-1s that you're going to allow because the play goes bad. We're supposed to be playing this defensive playoff type style, but we're still allowing the 2-on-1s and the breakaways. which leads me to the speed. Now, look, what did we have last year out there? We had Ekblad Uyghur, okay? Ekblad before his injury was having a Norris caliber season, and Uyghur's not exactly slow. He's not light, he's not Lightning McQueen, but he's not slow. Forsling, Montour were obviously out there, and then it was Gudis and Carlson was a younger player again, who's not slow. And now on defense you have a slowed up Ekblad, okay, and you have Stahl out there. And Mahura pretty much looks like he skates about like Forsling does. So I think that's kind of a wash with Carlson. But between Ekblad being slowed down, we've introduced Stahl into the system, who doesn't look bad when he's in position. But as you've seen, just like Yandel towards the end, these guys, when they get older, it's not that they can't play anymore. They can't swivel their hips. It's what gets almost all hockey players. It's the same thing you have with Yager. They can still shoot the puck. They can still skate pretty decent speed if they're going straight away, but they can't swivel their hips. They can't make the turns. They can't go from, make the change from moving forward to suddenly moving backwards fast. They can't move their hips. It's just age. It's just a natural thing. And that might be catching up with Ekblad a little bit prematurely because remember, number one, he's been in the league since he was what, like 10, right? I mean, Ekblad's been playing for a long time, and he's had so many injuries to his legs now that eventually your body starts to break down. Some guys last till 34, 35, 36, but you know, there's a reason why 30 is that magic number. And I'm just going to look this up here because I mean, how old is Aaron Ekblad? He was born in 96, so I mean, he's still a young guy. He's still a young guy. He's only 26 years old. So it ain't anything age related. But then you think about it, I mean, he's 26, he's had two major leg injuries and whatever this is with his groin and whatever he got last night, he got dinged blocking a shot. Um, so I don't know what you do there, right? I know there's a lot of people on Twitter saying trade him. I cracked a joke sort of about, trade Carlson, trade Ekblad and Bob for Carlson straight up. Um, somebody said that would be like the greatest trade in the history of hockey here in the comments too. All right, let's pick up a couple more comments here. Yeah, I was a Lightning fan. You know I'm right. Is his is his handle says if the Panthers could pull off a trade sending Ekblad and Bob to the Sharks for Carlson, that would be the greatest trade ever pulled. All right, let's see. Um, there was at least one more that I wanted to read. Oh, okay, yeah. Pragawaga says to be fair, the power play has been better than at the season start. I really think the team has the talent, so the underperformance is really frustrating to watch. I don't think you can blame Zito as much as you do, talking about me. I don't think he or anyone else could have foreseen a rough start of this magnitude. I mean, we all expected greater things over the summer, even predicting cup wins. So why trade anyone or do anything more than acquiring Kachuk? I think we were all on that same page. Um, I hear what you're saying, but I mean, it's, I wasn't on that page. I mean, Stu and I weren't on that page. We were waiting and waiting and waiting for what move Zito was going to make so that we wouldn't have this exact problem, which is these are the players, and we have no cap space with which to. I mean, like if we wanted to do something at the deadline, we're going to have to send somebody somewhere. See, we don't even have room to bring Declare back. So while I was predicting a cup and all of that, yes, what Zito did was roll the dice on doing nothing. And maybe he couldn't make something happen. Maybe Hornquist said, "Yeah, suck it, Bill. I've got a modified no move clause, and I want to stay in Florida." It's totally possible that that happened. but I wasn't on the page that this was the finished product. I waited all summer and then nothing happened. And now we see that it's just going to be a shell game of, well, if nobody gets hurt, let's just extrapolate this. We are November 21st. Let's say it's the middle of January, okay? And we're middling around 2 points, 3 points out of a playoff spot. And Duclair is ready to come back, okay? Duke is ready. He's ready to go. What are we going to do? You can't buy out Hornquist. The buyout period has passed. You could you could you could try to move him, but what's that going to cost us? So we're going to have to give up a Heponiemi, just get rid of Hornquist so that we can get Duclair back. These are things that I personally would have preferred to have seen done over the summer. That's what I was criticizing Zito for. I obviously I love the trade, right? That he made, but it did create a massive problem in terms of, I mean, when you say your back's up against the cap, the back is completely up against the cap. And what if Duclair didn't get hurt? I mean, where would we be right now if Duclair wouldn't have been hurt? He would have been forced to have moved somebody, somebody making 3 million would have had to, and then the other thing that I'm criticizing Zito about is that the choices here. Ekblad gets hurt, so he has some cap space for a little while. So he uses it to sign Eric Stahl instead of bringing up Heponiemi. And then instead of keeping Balsers and letting Stahl go, we lose Balsers. We keep Stahl. We still don't have room to bring up Heponiemi. And I think that is bad asset management. I think Zito is giving Maurice too much control, or Zito is. I'm going to blame this on Maurice, to be honest with you, because some of this is not what Zito has been normally doing. Okay, Balsers is the kind of guy that Zito goes out there and plucks. And I'm not saying Balsers is going to be fantastic or would have made a huge difference here. But losing Balsers for Stahl is Paul Maurice. That I can't imagine that was all on Zito. But Zito bears some responsibility because when was the trade? When was the Kachuk trade? I mean, it was the middle of summer, right? He had time to fix this problem that we now have and is now going to be worse. It would have been worse. It would have been worse. He gets lucky that Duclair got hurt, but we need him back. And if we have any hope of making a playoff run, we need him back before the season ends so he can play himself into shape. It was not a freak Achilles thing like with Huberto. That was probably a wear and tear type of Achilles thing that, Duke is going to have to work himself back. He's going to need 20, 30 games to get comfortable again. We're going to have to make space for him. And that part is on Zito. And at this point, if he's still going to continue to give Maurice the control of keeping in all these old geezers as opposed to some of the younger guys that we should be developing. If we were going to have a 500 season and miss the playoffs, it should not be because of Eric and Mark Stahl. If we're going to have a bad year, it's going to be because Heponiemi came in and is trying to develop. Spencer Knight is having some struggles trying to develop. That's the only way that it's acceptable we have a 500 season where we miss the playoffs. Not because Maurice came in and stuck us with these old guys and Zito's not making any moves to even make room for guys that are making minimum wage in the AHL. So, all right. Enough is enough is enough is enough. Poor Stu. He went to the Calgary game. He said he started to not feel too good then. And and then yesterday he didn't feel so good. And then now today he's like, I'm sick, bro. He's out. He's out. So if he feels better tomorrow, we might have a standard issue review with Jaws and Stu. But for now, the best thing I can do is I need a cigar. I don't have a cigar. The best thing I can do. This will be my best Stu impression. Ekblad sucks. Bob sucks. It all fucking sucks. That's the best I got. All right, that's enough for today. I really appreciate all the support. Um, what the hell is today? Today is Monday. I thought we played Tuesday, but we don't. We play Wednesday. We play the Bruins. Ah. In a way, I'm glad that we lost to Columbus because if they weren't going to meet, by the way, that prediction I made, 11-7-2, I was gonna go with 12-6-2. But then I thought, no, be safe and make it 11-7-2. I kind of was between 11 and 12. The point to that is that I wasn't thinking that we would be like 9-9-2. That never crossed my mind that it would be this bad because we ain't beating Boston. But the point is that I'm glad we lost to Columbus in the sense because I got the rant over losing to Columbus is a fully justified rant. If we lose to Boston, it's kind of like that sucked, but Boston's like 82-1 right now. I mean, it's absurd. And it just goes to show you, man, you never know, right? I mean, Boston loses their coach, and they thought they were going to suck, and they're great with their new coach. And Vegas is great with Boston's old coach, and I still miss Gerard Gallant. Damn it! That's when I started the channel. And I wasn't wrong then, and I'm not wrong now. I miss Gerard Gallant. It's a good hockey coach. He gets his teams to play hard. They don't win the cup every single year. I know he's never won a cup, but damn it, his teams were fun to watch. It wasn't like this. Just put it that way. His teams were fun to watch. You weren't complaining about lack of effort with the Gerard Gallant coach team. All right. Appreciate sport. I'll see you guys again soon.